Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Ross, and today I'll be presenting my research on digital surveillance in the workplace. This topic explores the intersection of technology, law, and ethics, specifically how employee privacy is affected by digital monitoring. Let's dive into how this issue plays out globally and what ethical concerns it raises. Introduction. Digital communication tools have completely transformed the way we work, but they've also made it easier for employers to monitor employees. Whether it's reading emails, tracking internet activity, or recording phone calls, surveillance in the workplace is rapidly growing. And this raises important questions about consent, dignity, and fairness. In this presentation, I'll walk you through the technologies involved, compare legal frameworks in the US and Europe, and offer ethical analysis of what's at stake. Common monitoring technologies. So let's start with how employees are being monitored. Sorry. Some of the most common tools include email scanners, screens capture software, key loggers that record every stroke, and even AI tools that try to predict who's about to quit. They're often used on company-owned devices and without detailed explanations to the employee. While they're intended to boost productivity, or protect the business, they can also be very invasive, especially if the employee isn't fully informed. US legal framework. In the United States, the law generally favors employers. The main legislation is the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, or the ECPA. It allows companies to monitor employees if there's a business reason or if the employee has given consent, which is often implied when using work devices. The challenge is that there is no consistent federal privacy law for workers, and protections vary a lot from state to state. EU legal framework. Now let's compare that to the European Union. Under the GDPR, especially Article 88, employers must prove that any monitoring is necessary, proportional, and transparent. Employees must give real consent, and in many countries like Germany, labor laws further protect workers. This means that you can't just install tracking software without real, clear explanations.
Workplace surveillance has gained significant attention, especially with the rise of remote work and technological advancements. Recent cases, such as Susie Chaco's dismissal by IAG due to keystroke monitoring, highlight the legal complexities and ethical concerns surrounding employee monitoring. Australia ranks highest globally in employer surveillance, with various methods employed, including webcam access and keystroke tracking. Legal frameworks regarding surveillance vary across states and territories, impacting the rights of employees. For instance, while NSW and ACT require employers to provide notice and specify surveillance purposes, Victoria, Western Australia, Southern Australia, and Northern Territory have more general legislation. Queensland and Tasmania have limited protections, particularly regarding listening devices. A notable case involved Sar Markovic, who successfully challenged his unfair dismissal after being surveilled via CCTV without consent. Markovic was awarded $6,924 in compensation, emphasizing the importance of legal compliance in workplace monitoring. If you or someone you know has experienced unfair dismissal, it's crucial to seek the right support. For more details on the cases discussed and additional insights, you can read the full article below. Remember, you don't have to face these challenges alone. If you believe you are a victim of unfair dismissal, don't hesitate to reach out for assistance. Call 1-800-333-666 to connect with professionals who can provide guidance and support.
Ethical perspectives. So what does this mean from an ethical standpoint? A utilitarian approach might support workplace monitoring if it leads to better productivity or safety for the majority, but a productivity or safety for the majority. But a rights-based produce, sorry, but a rights-based approach argues that people have a fundamental right to privacy, and that right shouldn't be violated just because it's technically possible. The biggest takeaway here is that ethical justification depends on transparency, purpose, and respect for individual dignity. Common justifications and fallacies. Employers often argue that since the equipment belongs to the company, they have every right to monitor it. But just because you own the tool doesn't mean that you should use it in ways that invade privacy. Another argument that is that if we don't monitor, people won't work. But this is a slippery slope because in reality, over monitoring can lead to stress, mistrust, and lower morale. Global workplace implications. So let's dissect this. The global nature of remote work complicates things even more. An employee in the United States may be subject to completely different rules than somebody in the European Union, even though they're doing the same work. This creates challenges for international companies to try to stay compliant while respecting privacy rights. It also shows why more consistent global framework is becoming increasingly important. Let's look to the future with the future outlook. Looking ahead, AI tools are only going to make monitoring more powerful. We see it in everyday life. Predictive analysis can flag employees who may be unhappy, disengaged, or likely to leave. But these tools also risk profiling and treating people unfairly or using biased data. That's why more companies are now adopting privacy by design approaches which prioritize users' rights from the start. Let's look at some ethical recommendations. So, what can companies do to be more ethical? First, limit surveillance to what's truly necessary. Be honest. Secondly, clearly explain what's being monitored and why. Third, give employees a say in the process. And finally, always choose transparency and fairness over control. And to conclude my presentation, um, digital surveillance is legal in many parts of the world. It's legal in the United States, it's legal in the European Union, which are the leading countries of the world today. But that doesn't always mean that it's ethical. That doesn't always mean that it's not invasive to workers' privacy. The US needs stronger protections, while the EU offers a more balanced model. And ultimately, we should support workers and not control them. Thank you for listening to my presentation. And next up are some references.